Hey folks, Positive Paul, and I don't know, we'll see if we can cobble another video together that may be worthwhile for some of you out there in the land that was once called America. One of the things that I've been trying to get a grasp on is concerning the hybrid issue. Now, at this point, if I continue to make more videos, my focus is going to be concerning the hybrid issue. And the reason being is we're at this critical stage, this juncture of where some of us that have been going through this spiritual awakening, if you want to call it that, are soon going to probably disappear. Let's put it that way. Whether they can kill us off or whether we're taken home to Father. Now, we know that when the Nephilim came in Genesis 6, it was when men multiplied on earth. Now, if you look at that statement in itself and we apply that to what we factually know to be true, and one of the ways we know this is through what we call a census. And at some point, I guess around the mid to late 1800s, and this is one of the ways how I discovered about my family that came from Bavaria, Germany, is through an 1880 census form. But when we track all this data and compile it and place it into our modern way of correlating information and figuring things out, we know that men didn't really multiply on Earth until around, say, the 1920s, leading up to today. Now, interestingly enough, there is a interview in 1958 where Mike Wallace is interviewing Aldous Huxley. And in this interview, Huxley gets in very briefly concerning this matter of the population explosion on Earth and how, he didn't use the word elites, but I'm going to use it, how the people in power then were going to deal with this population explosion. So, one of the ways that we see this population explosion occur is through our census form. And why is it necessary to understand how many people that we truly have in America or anywhere else on the globe? Is it a political concern where the increase of population will cause, I guess, the political system to add or subtract more leaders in these particular geographical areas where the population increase seems to, exponentially just keep rising? Or is this a function of being able to track human beings and understand where some of these people are that need to be kept tabs on? Because, again, one of the ways for Satan or Yahweh or whoever to usher in this transhumanism agenda, they need to breed out humans that, and I'll just make the statement, folks, again, back to this R&M supercomputer. A living, thinking human being, all right, is not going to succumb to this R&M supercomputer that easy, all right? This is an all hands on deck process concerning mind control and controlling these human beings. Now, MK Ultra was just the beginning to all that. But who can be controlled? The hybrids. Okay? They remember, they can't think for themselves. And one of the ways we know that is look at this whole stalking phenomenon concerning what I tell you is if you're a real target, you've got hybrids stalking you. Now, who are the hybrids? All right? Well, we can go right back to Eve in Genesis. She was the first hybrid. But Yahweh could not replicate, could not duplicate the genetic blueprint of Adam that came from Elohim. And so there was a mark. And this mark had to be dealt with because these Adamites could see and distinguish who these hybrids were. Now, this is where the whole thing gets sticky, because we know that by the time we come to chapter 4 in Genesis and the birth of Cain, that these qualities, all right, that in particular are part of the original DNA blueprint are also within Cain, but not in a good way, all right? Now we see the spirit of Yahweh, of Satan, the serpent, come into Cain and cause him to be a murderer. And the one thing that we can take away from Cain is that somehow he got cut out of the whole shebang. Well, if there ever was an inheritance, it wasn't going to go to Cain. And literally, they stop his genealogy at Lamech. And this bloodthirsty Lamech made the statement that if Cain can kill sevenfold, I will kill 77-fold. So we don't really know where Cain went, and his descendants, they went to the east of Eden, and we could look at a map and start drawing conclusions that, possibly Cain is somewhere, who knows, up in Russia, up in Iran, in some of these places that it appears these people seem to have problem with the rest of the global population. So trying to continue on with this and continue to try to make some sense, we know Cain's out of the picture, but his spirit, these people exist somewhere, but we just don't know where. Now, when Noah was perfect in his generations, that means he did not breed with hybrids, all right? He maintained that original DNA blueprint. And like I said, originally, think of it as a roulette wheel, black or white, all right? When these humans and hybrids were getting together, you never knew what was going to pop out. It could be 100% human, 100% original DNA blueprint, or, the worst, meaning a complete hybrid, which the enmity, all right, that right there, it spells it out. And all this was before Cain, mind you, the enmity. So as we move further along, we keep seeing how Yahweh and certainly Elohim's influence that would step in from time to time, and we see this in Leviticus due to the fact that these giants, these Nephilim, the spirit of Cain, these hybrids, all right, when their back is to the wall, they will turn on you, meaning humans, and just make you into a little snack, make you into lunch, right? The Nephilim, the giants, when the cupboards were bare, what did they do? They turned on each other. They turned on animals. They turned on humans. So we have, you know, all this stuff that went on, and it's all science fiction. It's a tall tale. But why in the world would you have cannibalism in a modern era, which it still exists in some places on Earth, some remote, you know, they're probably not God-forsaken places, but in some remote spot, cannibalism probably exists. Why is that? Okay? So the point of this is the hybrids. All right, look. We know that Ham's son, Canaan, was cursed by Noah, and these are what became the Canaanites, but a whole group of them, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Girgashites, all these, and they're up to no good because specifically Yahweh singled them out for destruction. Now, was that because Yahweh knows that, look, he's not going to totally get his way. And if he lets these groups of people overrun humans, the original DNA blueprint, that the Elohim are going to respond with the power of, who knows, 1 billion volts coming at you and just atomize you into a little speck of dust. But as we work our way through the Old Testament, all right, and you come to Joshua and Caleb, it's described that Caleb is of another spirit, and they tell you where he came from, all right? The Canaanites, all right, which they stem from Cain. So you have two groups of hybrids now. The original Cain, and then there's Canaan, that throughout the Old Testament, all these people are at odds with God's chosen people. Now, when you come to Judges, this is very important. Judges is a hard book to get a handle on, but why it's important is first you see Judah and Simeon teaming up to continue this weeding out process of the Canaanites and all the other groups. But further, it tells you about Caleb having another spirit, right? Joshua's younger brother, and where he came from. So with that being said, why would Yahweh eventually choose Caleb and Judges to continue on this weeding out process? All right, well, because he's going to follow orders. He's not going to question Yahweh. He is going to do what the Lord tells him, meaning Yahweh, Jehovah, the false God, which is a real God, an all-powerful God, that if you step out of line, you know, bad luck can come your way. So we kind of see this weeding out process, and one of the things that we want to understand is when we come to the end of Old Testament, we're in Zechariah, and we are in the last chapter, which is chapter 14, and we're going to go to verse 20. And it says, "In that day shall there be upon thee bells of the horses, holiness unto the Lord, and the pots in the Lord's house be like the bowls before the altar. Yea, every pot in Jerusalem and in Judah shall be holiness unto the Lord of hosts. And all they that sacrifice shall come, and take of them, and seethe therein. And in that day there shall be no more the Canaanite in the house of the Lord." Okay, you got that. Now, again, when you go to Malachi at the very end of the Old Testament, it starts off, and he tells you, "I hated Esau, and I left his mountains. I laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness." You know that something's not right. One, the Canaanites, look, their days are numbered. Now, this last video I did concerning the plague of locust and how the Jews in the final days are going to be 7 times demonically possessed with the spirit of Cain, and who knows, Canaan could be both. But the point is that this spirit, all right, does not want to go away. And what prophecy has told us is when men multiply on the face of the earth, that angels came into the daughters of men that they saw were fair. Now this is the modern day hybrid breeding program that they must have been tinkering around before World War II, but after World War II, it ramped up full tilt. And with these hybrids, the one thing you need to understand is that, look, they are not counted in God's graces. Yes, they're amongst us. They look like us. They talk like us. They can talk about God. They can read the Bible. But they're cut off from that original spirit that moved across the water, that human beings are connected to. And the Gentiles that were offered salvation are connected to, if they want to be connected to it. And that's going to be a whole different story on who really can be saved here and who can't. Well, folks, the hybrids of our generation, the fig tree generation, they can't be saved. All they have is this world. And this is why they're going apeshit, because they know their time is almost up. So who are these hybrids? What have I said? Look, we know they were placed in positions of power. They're not going to just make a hybrid and put him as some, janitor somewhere sweeping up garbage. No, they're going to become politicians. They're going to become doctors. They're going to become lawyers. They're going to become the people that control this society that we live in and is soon to go away. Now, an original hybrid that might have been born, say, late 40s, early 50s, they were part of this whole mass mind control project from the get-go. One of the reasons why you had MK Ultra is people like me and those other kids that aren't alive, we can spot these hybrids if they had not damaged us as children from birth. And this is what has been happening with me for a long time now. Once my program was completely unraveled, some of what I physically have seen with my own two eyes would make you crawl under your bed crying for your mommies. Now, these hybrids now, the original ones, you clearly look, that's the shape-shifting phenomenon. You don't have to spend a lot of time doing this either, all right? Some people are making a joke out of it and sensationalizing it, like our buddy Rich, all right, with his shapeshifter analysis movies, all right, trying to make it a joke that, yes, Rich does. He tells you that there is a hell and there's a heaven, and he's right about that. But do you understand part of the job of these phonies is to lead you astray of how important it is to understanding that there are two types of people right now fighting for dominance on earth. But due to biblical Hebrew prophecy, we know that, look, one of them's not going to get their way, and it's not the original DNA blueprint, meaning Adam. So these hybrids are placed in the entertainment industry. They're musicians, this and that. Take your pick, all right? They come out of Hollywood. We know that. They're on Wall Street, all right? And God knows what's been going on in Europe. I know one of the things that when MK Ultra got exposed and I finally surfaced around 72, and you see when Helms is destroying the records and Delgado gets chased out of the United States, where do I end up at? The Canary Islands. It's Canaanite stronghold. These dog people. Now I've been examining my orbs photos for going back in particular these past 4 years. Clearly you can see what we call reptilians and grays, but also I can now, I've looked into this now, looking at these pictures, and some of them are clearly dog-faced people. Now, back to Judges, of why that's important. For one, Judges is important because if you're going to understand God's timeline and how prophecy works, you need to understand Judges, because God does not count when Israel is in sin or servitude towards his timeline. And in Judges, it clearly delineates when Israel was free and when they were in servitude or sin. But more important, when you come to Gideon, all right, Yahweh's telling him to look, trim down your army from 32,000 to 300. But it's the lappers. Why did Yahweh want Gideon to keep the lappers, the 300 lappers? Look, I shouldn't have to tell you why. You know why. So, the hybrid issue. That's a big joke that everybody thinks is just science fiction. So we've gotten to the point now where whatever they're doing with these younger people, look at the little Draco hybrid, James Rink, the supposed Montauk boy. I clearly got him. It's getting pathetic. And these super soldiers, all right, with this the hybrid breeding program with them, trying to make these the Uber whatever they called them in Germany, all right. Where are these no good Nick super soldiers concerning me, all right? Why haven't I been taken out yet? And I'll tell you what they did Friday. I'm coming up on the 2nd anniversary of them trying to kill me back in the beginning of March 2 years ago. And I survived a whole week of their attacks. They tried the same shit with me on Friday, and I'm still here. Jokers, all of you. So these hybrids right? They're gonna follow orders, and yes, they can. Here, I'll give you some more clues about what hybrid. They're totally nonchalant about everything. And it's like these YouTube frauds that, oh yeah, the stalking, oh yeah, it's like just their whole testimony is this nonchalant, no big deal, no emotion shown whatsoever, because they don't have what makes a human is the emotion inside of us, caring for one another, showing love towards one another, what Jesus has taught us about. What does he say in Matthew 18 about, hey, Peter's saying, look, if my brother sins against me 7 times, do I still got to forgive him? And what does Jesus tell him? Yes, you got to forgive him not only 7, but 70 times 7. So, look, here we are, all right? I'm trying to just make points. I make observations, and I'm looking at some of these younger so-called TIs, and they're clueless. This is why they can't be for real. It's impossible. Now, if we're not counting on prophecy to take place in this end time scenario, and we're sitting there thinking that, hey, this world as we know, it's never going to change. It's just the way it is. There's mean people and there's nice people. There's lucky people and unlucky people. Some people get breaks, some people don't. This complacency is going to cost you your head, because when everything finally collapses, those of you that are left on planet Earth are going to have a choice to get down on your knees and get your head chopped off and go home to your Father and enjoy eternal life, or get thrown into the lake of fire.